Gloria Jefferson, a 76-year-old grandmother, found herself in a situation that no passenger should ever experience. Dressed elegantly in a tailored suit, her silver hair neatly styled, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had lived a life of both grace and strength. She had saved up for months to treat herself to a first-class flight, a rare luxury, to visit her grandchildren across the country. But as she settled into her spacious seat, preparing for a comfortable journey, an airline employee approached her with an uneasy expression. "Ma'am, I'm afraid we need to ask you to deboard the flight," the attendant said, avoiding direct eye contact. Gloria blinked in surprise but didn't raise her voice. "May I ask why?" The attendant hesitated. "It's a seating reassignment. We've overbooked, and, well, we need your seat." Gloria glanced around. The cabin was half empty. Other first-class passengers, mostly younger and dressed in business attire, watched the exchange with mild curiosity. She knew what was happening, she had seen stories like this before. But she wasn't the type to argue in public. With a slow nod, she gathered her belongings and stood. As she walked down the aisle, whispers followed her. Some passengers looked uncomfortable, others simply turned away. But Gloria held her head high. She had faced far greater challenges in her life than this. Once off the plane, she found a quiet corner in the terminal and made a single phone call. The airline, Tarmac Air, had no idea who they had just wronged. Gloria wasn't just any passenger. Decades ago, she had been one of the few women in her field working as a systems engineer, breaking barriers in a male-dominated industry. She had helped design critical aviation software still in use today. Later in life, she became a key figure in managing her late husband's family trust, a fund worth hundreds of millions, with significant investments in transportation, including a major stake in Tarmac Air. By the time Gloria reached her hotel, an email had already been sent from the trust's legal team to Tarmac Air's board of directors. It was concise, professional, and devastating. The trust would be withdrawing all investments immediately, citing unethical and discriminatory practices. The letter also hinted at a forthcoming public statement. Panic erupted at Tarmac Air's headquarters. The CEO, who had never heard of Gloria Jefferson before that day, suddenly found himself on a frantic conference call with investors. The airline's stock began to drop within hours. News outlets, tipped off by anonymous sources, started running stories about the elderly woman removed from her first-class seat, only for the world to discover she was a brilliant engineer and a powerful investor. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #JusticeForGloria and #BoycottTarmacAir trended worldwide. Former colleagues came forward, sharing stories of Gloria's groundbreaking work. Passengers who had witnessed the incident gave interviews, describing how calmly she had handled the humiliation. Tarmac Air scrambled to respond. They issued a public apology, offered Gloria a lifetime of free first-class travel, and promised to review their policies. But it was too late. The damage was done. Other investors, concerned about the airline's reputation, began pulling their funds as well. Within weeks, Tarmac Air's stock had plummeted, and executives were forced to resign. Gloria, meanwhile, gave no interviews. She simply boarded another flight, this time with a different airline, and made it to her grandchildren's home without further incident. When asked by her family if she was upset about what happened, she smiled faintly. "I've spent my life being underestimated," she said. "But I've learned that the quietest actions often speak the loudest." The story didn't end there. Inspired by Gloria's ordeal, lawmakers began pushing for stricter regulations against airline overbooking and discriminatory seat removals. Advocacy groups used her case to highlight how often elderly passengers, especially women, were unfairly targeted. And in boardrooms across the industry, executives started double-checking passenger manifests, wondering if the next person they inconvenienced might just be another Gloria Jefferson. As for Gloria herself, she went back to her quiet life, though with one small difference. She now flew first class whenever she wanted, not because any airline had given her a free pass, but because she had reminded the world that respect isn't something you earn through wealth or status. It's something you deserve simply for being human. and that was a lesson Tarmac Air would never forget. The fallout was swift. Within hours of Gloria Jefferson's removal from the flight, the story exploded online. A fellow passenger, a young college student named Maya, had discreetly recorded the incident on her phone. She posted the video with a simple caption, "This is how Tarmac Air treats a 76-year-old black woman who paid for first class. Disgusting." The clip spread like wildfire. By midnight, it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. Celebrities, civil rights activists, and even politicians weighed in. "This is systemic disrespect," tweeted a prominent congresswoman. "Auntie Gloria deserved better," wrote a famous actor, using the affectionate term often given to revered black elders. The hashtag #RespectGloria trended worldwide, and protests erupted outside Tarmac Air's headquarters. Tarmac Air's PR team scrambled. First, they issued a generic apology, "We regret any inconvenience caused and are reviewing our policies." But the public wasn't buying it. Then came the leaked internal memo, a tone-deaf email from a senior executive suggesting Gloria had been removed because she didn't fit the first-class demographic. The backlash was immediate. Sponsors pulled out. Stock prices nosedived. Enter Reuben Dillard, Gloria's longtime associate and the chief financial advisor of the Jefferson Family Trust. A sharp-eyed investigator with decades of experience in corporate finance, Reuben had always been suspicious of Tarmac Air's books. Now, with public scrutiny at an all-time high, he launched a full audit. What he found was explosive. Tarmac Air had been hiding massive losses through shady accounting, overbooking flights to inflate revenue, cutting corners on safety inspections, and even misreporting executive bonuses as operational expenses. Reuben compiled the evidence into a damning report and sent it to regulators, shareholders, and major news outlets. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, launched an investigation. Shareholders filed lawsuits. The CEO resigned to spend more time with his family, and the airline's board announced emergency reforms. But the damage was irreversible. Within months, Tarmac Air was bought out by a competitor at a fraction of its former value. While the world raged on her behalf, Gloria herself remained calm. Reporters camped outside her home, begging for interviews. Talk shows offered six-figure sums for her story. But she declined them all. Instead, she packed her bags and flew to Savannah, this time without incident, to attend her great-granddaughter's robotics competition. 12-year-old Naomi had built a solar-powered robot that could sort recyclables, and she had just won first place in her division. As Gloria watched Naomi accept her trophy, her eyes glistened with pride. Later, at a small family dinner, Naomi asked, "Grandma, are you mad at what happened with the airline?" Gloria smiled, stirring her tea. "Baby, I've been underestimated my whole life. But look at you, you're out here changing the world. That's what matters." Gloria's story didn't just end with Tarmac Air's downfall. It sparked real change. Lawmakers introduced the Passenger Dignity Act, banning airlines from forcibly removing paying customers without just cause. Advocacy groups used her case to highlight how often older black women face discrimination in travel. And corporate boards across the country started diversity training, realizing that the unassuming passenger they ignored might just be the one who could dismantle their empire with a single phone call. As for Gloria, she never sought revenge. She didn't need to. The world had spoken for her. And in the end, she got what she truly wanted, a quiet flight to see her family, and the joy of watching her great-granddaughter shine. Years later, when asked about the incident in a rare interview, Gloria simply said, "I didn't do anything special. I just refused to be treated as less than I am." And that, perhaps, was the most powerful lesson of all. The invitation had come quietly, a request from a small women's leadership group in Macon, Georgia. Gloria Jefferson had never considered herself a public speaker, but something about the earnestness of the young organizer's voice made her say yes. The event was held in a modest community center, but the room was packed. Journalists, activists, and young students sat shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fixed on the small stage where Gloria stood, elegant as always in a deep blue dress, her silver hair catching the light. She hadn't prepared notes. She simply spoke from the heart. "I didn't come here today to talk about airlines," she began, her voice steady. "I came to talk about respect. Not the kind you earn with money or titles, but the kind you owe every human being simply because they exist." The room fell silent. She spoke of her early days as one of the only black women in engineering, of the meetings where men talked over her until she learned to hold her ground without raising her voice. She spoke of the times she'd been followed in stores, the assumptions people made because of her age or her skin. And then, softly but firmly, she spoke of the days she was taken off that flight. "They thought I wouldn't fight back. Maybe they thought I couldn't. But dignity doesn't require shouting. Sometimes the strongest stand you can take is to refuse to shrink." When she finished, there was no dramatic applause, just a collective exhale, as if the audience had been holding its breath. Then, one by one, people began to rise. A young woman wiping tears. An elderly man nodding slowly. A college student clapping so hard her hands turned red. Gloria's words didn't stay in that room. Clips of her speech spread across social media, shared with captions like "This is how you change the world" and "Say it louder for the people in the back." A high school teacher in Chicago played it for her civics class. A union leader quoted it during a labor rally. Even a famous musician ended a concert by projecting Gloria's face on stage and saying, "Y'all, this is what a hero looks like." Meanwhile, the practical consequences of her actions continued unfolding. 3 major airlines revised their overbooking policies. A well-known civil rights organization launched a hotline for travel discrimination complaints, naming it the Gloria Jefferson Initiative. And in an unexpected twist, the National Society of Engineers announced a new scholarship in her honor, for young women pursuing aerospace careers. Gloria, true to form, declined most interviews. But she did agree to one, sitting in her sunlit living room with Naomi, her great-granddaughter, beside her. The reporter, a thoughtful woman from a black-owned media outlet, asked what she hoped people would take from her story. "That you don't have to be loud to be heard," Gloria said, smoothing Naomi's braids absent-mindedly. "And that standing up for yourself isn't just about you, it makes it easier for the next person, and the next." Naomi, who'd been quiet, suddenly piped up, "Like dominoes." Gloria laughed. "Yes, baby. Like dominoes." On her 80th birthday, surrounded by 4 generations of her family, Gloria blew out candles shaped like airplanes, a gag gift from Reuben. As everyone cheered, her eldest grandson teased, "Grandma, you gonna sue the cake next if it's not sweet enough?" The room erupted in laughter. Gloria just smiled, eyes twinkling. "No need," she said, slicing the cake with precision. "It already knows better." And in that moment, warm, surrounded by love, her quiet strength woven into the fabric of her family's lives, it was clear, Gloria Jefferson had won far more than a battle with an airline. She'd shown the world how to move through it with unshakable grace.